Hey y'all, it's time for Rolling Dice and Taking Names. This episode is full of 5-minute initiatives featuring short games, including Jekyll and Hyde versus Scotland Yard, Tower Up, Rebel Princess, Biomos, Flash 10, Lure, Magic Maze Tower, Gap, and Stalk Exchange. Whew, short games, but long list.
Hello and welcome to Rolling Dice and Taking Names. This is episode number 330, Classical Gas. I'm Tony.
My name's Marty.
Classical gas can mean so many different things.
No, I don't understand this at all. So here's the thing, y'all. This episode is focusing on games that are played in under 60 minutes, many of them less than 45 and even 30 minutes, which means we have a ton of 5-minute initiatives we're going to be doing. So with the whole theme of the episode being fast, quick, easy games, I thought, I'm really curious what Tony would come up with, because I would come up with something with like, I got no time from the Guess Who. Mm-hmm. And then I come in and look, and it's Classical Gas, which is an instrumental. Mm-hmm. I don't understand this at all.
Okay. Have you ever listened to it?
Many times, yes.
Many times. That's just it. It's one of those things that, I'll be honest with you. So I was over at my aunt and uncle's, and they had on their music playing, and this jumped up there, and I go, wait, I know this. I didn't know it was called Classical Gas. Yeah. I had no idea, and it reminded me of the theme to StarCraft, a portion of it. Okay. Which then made me think of all the
gosh. This is so convoluted. Go ahead.
Or it could be the fact that we are just old and, sometimes we have gas. So that's Classical Gas.
Okay, this still doesn't explain what does this have to do with games that don't take a lot of time.
I just wanted to do this one. Leave me alone. This one sounded good to me.
I thought the whole purpose was to try to fit the title to some sort of theme or something that's going on in the episode. And it's just like, this is a cool song. I'm going to use this one.
I can do that. I get to name them. I don't always have to follow the mantra that we have around here. And trust me, a lot of times some of these don't even have nothing, and they don't have anything to do with what we've got going on, but the majority of time of it. Y'all
let us know which would have been a better title for this episode about short games. Got No Time or Classical Gas.
Well, you got Classical Gas. You may have to be spending some time on the bathroom. Just that's another thing going on.
Had you heard this song before you heard it today?
Oh, well, yeah, I've heard it multiple times, many times. Like I said, I just walked in and suddenly it was playing, and it just got an earworm yesterday when I was over at their house. So I can't help it. Okay, leave me alone. All right, let's move on. Going on to something even better.
Please.
So I drove into Bojangles and ordered a biscuit, and I am greeted by a voice, not of the people at the window. That freaked me out.
I'm shaking my head because, they've introduced, it's funny, some people call it AI ordering. It's not AI ordering, it's just automated ordering system. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm.
First, they were much clearer.
Yeah.
Second, it got it exactly what I ordered.
Did you have a lot of caveats or alterations to your order? Because that's where it screws up.
No, I want a bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit, please. Is there anything else you would like with your order? Or would you like to combo that? No. All right. Your total is go to the window. I'm like, whoa.
I want you to do this. Bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit, but hold the cheese. And instead of the bow rounds, I would like grits instead. And could I get some butter with the grits? And then for the drink, make it half sweet, half unsweet tea. See how well it does then.
I bet it doesn't do well at all. I bet it can't manage it. Because it's not going to be processed.
It's one of those things that I'm trying to talk slowly. And then at the end, I say, repeat my order to see if it got all the little nuances that I said. And what's even harder is when you're going in and ordering for more than one person.
And I'll admit, I have given up on drive-thrus. I pretty much do everything either through an app, and they do mobile pickup. But in the mornings, you just can't do that because usually the doors are locked. So I was very surprised by that. I can understand what you're saying, but for me, that's the first time it's ever happened. I don't know if it's at other restaurants. I was just like, what the heck is going on here, Bo?
All right, so I got a story for you.
Okay. Now, what happens if I'm going to segue here?
Okay.
But what happens if this ordering system were to ever get hacked?
Oh, I don't know.
Now go to your story.
That was your attempt. All right. So this past week, I go into the office and I sit down and log on. It's like, I got no network connection. And about that time, the VP comes out and says, I got a network connection? I went, nah. He said, the routers must be down. He goes and comes back and said, the routers aren't down. So let me call our IT in the UK because everything's kind of routed through them. It's like, oh, everything is down. I said, oh, okay. So we're going to have to go and try to load our backup system and see if it gets up and running. Come to find out, we were hacked. And so it's one of those things. It's like, oh, wow, you hear about this happening. But this was one of those, it's like, we're taking you down and we want something in return. And they got a list of all the employees and actually started calling the employees.
Oh, really?
So I got this phone call from a person that had very broken English. And here's how it came across. Yes. Hi, Marty Connell, because they knew who was associated with who. I'm Andrew. This calls to notify you personally that I guess you've probably already heard that about the Spectrum Medical company that you work for has been recently hacked by a group of hackers. Lots of information, including yours, by the way. That's why I'm calling you to let you know that if your department ball, here's the problem is it's the way it's written is really broken up. If your department boss is just tell them about that, and you know the hackers have been trying, by the way, to start the negotiations with Spectrum Medical, but your company's people are keeping silent. They ignored the negotiations, and if they continue, it will be open access for everyone around the world, and it will be sold to the dark web, etc. You should know that and contact your IT department. Have a great day.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So it was like a little bit of some corporate espionage and then trying to get some money. Well, it didn't work because, you never negotiate with the terrorists, basically. I mean, we got everything coming back on and up and running and stuff, but that was pretty wild.
It is pretty wild. I know I've sat through our cyber drills, and yep, you do not do that. And there's various rules that who you can talk to, and if they're this people, you can't give them any money at all. So you have to when the gas company Williams, was it Williams? Yeah, got hacked, or somebody got hacked around here. That was brutal because I was like, good gosh, shut down their systems and everything. I mean, it's the world we live in. There was no way to hack my Commodore 64.
So yeah, your Commodore 64 wouldn't be hacked, and even if you had connected your modem to it, nobody was really into. Oh, wait a minute. That is incorrect. So in college, did you ever participate in the thing where we found out the hacking codes for AT&T to where you can make free long distance phone calls?
No.
Oh, so we had these numbers that somebody in our suite had found. And by dialing in these numbers at a payphone, it basically gave you free long distance calls. So we were all making free long distance calls until they finally shut those numbers off. It was like just a long series of numbers that as soon as you picked up the phone, it would take it. And then he said, okay, you can now dial your number and then you can call anywhere you want.
And for those of you who don't know, that at one time there used to be these phones that would sit on walls and you would actually go and put quarters in. It's not fiction in movies. These things actually exist. Matter of fact, I was in a court recently in Guilford County, and they had they didn't even bother to take down the little carousels that would hang on the wall between people for the payphones. They left those up and just ripped the phones off the wall. Oh, you got to be kidding me. And I'm like, do a little bit. I mean, how hard is it to spackle and throw a little paint? But now we're really on a tangent. This was supposed to be short. So we went to court for my daughter because of the videographer has yet to produce a video from over a year ago. And we went in there, and the magistrate, because this was small claims court, they call her name, they call her and says, I'm sorry, you're on the docket, but your stuff is not in the system. And Rebecca goes, well, I filed everything. And they go, well, it's not in the system because you didn't use this. She goes, I followed y'all's instructions. She goes, I know, but the system's changed. That hasn't been updated. So guess what? We will file this under a continuance and you can come back later. She drove up 7 hours to have her day in court, and all because somebody's sorry ass self didn't update a form that she had to fill out. She didn't know she needed to do something. people suck sometimes.
So going back to hacking, do you remember the old Hacker magazine 2600?
No.
Okay, it's a magazine that's been around for a while, just for hackers. And so when I first heard about it, 2600, I thought it was like, oh, the Atari 2600. But do you know where the 2600 comes from?
100100. No, where?
So you remember phones? They used to have a dial tone.
Yes.
And basically, when you dialed a number, the tones were do 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 do. It was it was a pitch, so they could recognize the number. 2600 was one way to hack into the system. That frequency.
Oh,
it's one way that would give you access to certain things within the system. So if you played that frequency into the phone, that would register or something.
Do you remember there were people that actually had little boxes with the number pads that played that? Do you remember those?
Yes. Yeah.
Once again,
old school.
the classical gas.
Sure. Classical gas. All right. So you and I at Gen Con I drug you to this demo for a game called Union Academy, and I know you didn't care for it. Whatever. It seems like CCGs are back on the rise all of a sudden. There's a game that we got sent a couple starter packs, a game called UniVersus. They also work with like anime shows and stuff. They have one like My Hero Academia, which is very popular, but they're coming out with something called Attack on Titan, which is another anime. And they sent us a couple starter decks. My son Brett said, I'd like to try that. So we sat down and played it. What is cool about this is kind of like a fighting game. There at one time was this Street Fighter game. It was Universal Fighting System or something like that, UFS. And it was a sort of the same deal where you fought, but when you fought, you had these different ways you attack, like high, mid, low. This is that same sort of deal. So the idea is that you're actually doing combat against each other. But I just want to talk about some of the cool, interesting ways that you get cards into play. When you play a card on your turn, there's a difficulty number in the upper left. And what you do is you flip over the top card of your deck. There's a check number in the lower right. If that value is greater than or equal to the card you're trying to pass, you've passed and you can now use that card. If I play another card, it's going to increase by 1. So my difficulty increases by 1. So it has a ramp. The more cards you try to play, the more difficult it is to pass those cards. Okay, I said, okay, that's kind of cool. I was thinking, wait a minute. If I can't pass, what happens? Well, if you can't pass, you have to discard your card. But I thought, well, wait a minute. There's some really high-priced cards in there. Aha. There are these things called foundation cards, which are cheaper to get into play. By the way, every card has a check value of at least 3. So if you play something with a 3, you're going to pass, and you know that. But if you get foundation cards into play, at the end of your turn, they go from the zone that you played them down to your staging area. In future rounds, you can exhaust those to give a +1 to your check. So if my check is a 6 and I only pulled a 4, I can exhaust 2 of my little foundation cards to give a +2 and actually pass the check. I thought, okay, that's kind of cool. So that's the ramp of the game, is that later in the game, you could play the more difficult cards. But when you're ready to fight, you'll play an attack card, and it's an attack either high, mid, or low. And there's things you can do called enhance, which can make your attacks do special stuff like that. I'm going to ignore all that for a second because there's other little things I can go on too. But then when you're done with that step, you say, I'm going to attack you mid with a speed of 4. The other person has the chance to block. They'll play a card. They can block high, mid, or low. If they block exactly, they're going to do a check on their block, and the check is the speed of the attack coming in, like 4, plus the defense of whatever their card they played is. Let's say it's 2, so they got to pass a 6. They flip the top card of their deck. Let's say it's 5. It's like, oh, well, I'm going to tap one of my stage cards I had earlier to pass. I totally blocked this attack. But if you play a block card if it's either high or low, you still take half damage. So you always want to have in your hand cards that can block every type of attack for a chance to successfully block it. So all that stuff made this cool little back and forth combat system with the clever ramp mechanic. And the whole goal is to knock somebody's life down to 0. And you always get to draw back up your hand at the beginning of the thing because you always have a handful of cards. And there's this concept, because you're constantly going through your deck real quick. When you're going through your deck, take your discard pile, shuffle it, and then remove 10 cards from the game. Then you continue playing. If you ever can't remove 10 cards after doing that cycling, you also automatically lose. So there's this built-in timer too that makes the card game really fast and really fluid. It was kind of cool.
Okay. I remember this, and I was looking it up while you were talking about it. But yeah, the Universal Fighting System, originally from Sabretooth Games, which was a miniature game that we played Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. So I remember when they came out with this, and I remember when there was this web cartoon penny arcade. They had characters that were part of it, and it was, the Street Fighter, and then this got renamed and rebranded. I don't know. Some stuff said it was Fantasy Flight Games at one time. I don't remember that. It might have been, but I definitely remember that. I remember the system from Sabretooth Games right before they folded. And I was like, okay, I remember all those cards and all those decks and the Street Fighter. I thought it was a very interesting system. You and I, of course, never got into it because I forget 2008 what we were doing by then. Who knows? We probably playing some other game.
Probably WoW.
But, yeah,
probably.
Anyway, I remember this. Okay, that's cool that you enjoyed it.
Yeah, so that's cool. So this, again, they've got multiple themes. Attack on Titan is the latest one that we got to check out. It was just released right before this recording. So if you're interested, they do have a couple starter decks, and you can try it out for yourself. Honestly, my biggest nitpick of the game is that the rules aren't in the starter box. I don't understand. There's a code that you can scan, and the code that I scanned takes me to Tolarian University, which is a big YouTube channel that mainly focuses on Magic. But he has a how to play, but it's how to play of My Hero Academia, and the cards look a little different. I'm looking right now at the how to play guide that's online. It's like, I wish that would have been folded up and put it inside the starter box. So learning the rules is kind of a pain because you had to look it up or watch a video or something.
Gotcha. Okay.
Last thing for the intro. I thought, hey, it's been about 25 years since, it's been 25 years since the year 2000. Isn't that insane? So I thought I'd have a little fun on Twitter. What I did was take the top 9 games rated by BGG, and I posted and I said, which of these 9 games from 2000 was your favorite? And it was just a way to get people to respond, talk about which games they liked during that time. And here are the top 9 games that came up. And Tony, I'm just bringing this up because I want to ask, which of these 9 games do you like, have you played, etc. So there's Carcassonne, Princes of Florence, Blockus, Taj Mahal, Nightmare Productions, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars Queen's Gambit, Citadels, and Battle Line. Now, looking through all the responses, we actually got one of everything. Like everybody said one of those games. I heard Carcassonne a couple times. Battle Line actually said that. Nightmare Productions, the Lord of the Rings game, which I got to play. Blockus, which I thought nobody was going to say that, but people were saying Blockus. So of those, I'm going to guess you would say Carcassonne, but is it something else?
No, I've played all of them but Nightmare Productions. So yeah, but what do I still play? What's one of my favorite? Yeah, probably Carcassonne because I never got to play Princes of Florence or the Queen's Gambit.
You've played Princess. We played it.
I know, but what I'm saying is back then, of it in 2000. So it would be Carcassonne's Star Wars, the Queen's Gambit. I played that at a BGG con, first time ever, and thought, wow, this is no wonder everybody goes gaga over this.
Did you like it?
It was with the dice. Yeah. It was very random. So if I remember correctly, played it once, we put it away, and just so we could say we played it.
It'd be interesting if, I don't know how that would come out again, but something like that. I don't know. Yeah, I heard it was a very random thing too. They tried to make that Star Wars game that was kind of like Queen's Gambit, and it was sold like at Amazon.
Yeah.
I actually bought a copy of it, but I don't know. It'd be kind of cool to bring some of these back. Some of these have been brought back. Like Princess of Florence was a reprint we got to play. My favorite here is Taj Mahal. I really enjoyed Taj Mahal. Blockus is a great family game. Lord of the Rings was reprinted. Battle Line was reprinted. Citadels played many times. It's funny. One person was really praising Nightmare Productions, and now I'm really interested in that. I didn't realize that was a Rana Knizia game.
No, I didn't either. I had no clue.
That one looks really cool, so I'd like to try that one sometime. So, yeah, I don't know. It was fun to look back at that time. So what I'm going to do is, for the next episode, make sure to follow us on Twitter at Dyson Names. I'll post the top 9 games from 2001, and we'll revisit this in another episode where we pick which of our games from 2001 did we like the most.
The best thing is make you feel old.
Exactly. All right. Like we said, tons of 5-minute initiatives coming up. This is perfect for the short games that we're going to be talking about in this episode.
Head over to miniaturemarket.com for all those gaming needs. That's right. You've heard all the reviews. You've seen all the videos about Gen Con. Any of those games just jump out at you. Something that you could really, really get into. Maybe it's Rock Hard 1977 over at Miniature Market. You can pick it up. It's in the store right now for $39.99. Or Arcs Conflict and Collapse in the Reach, $48. Well, maybe new games just aren't your thing. You don't need any more new games because you want to save a lot of money. Well, just recently, Miniature Market ran a big 90% off as they try to clear out their inventory to bring those new games. And so maybe next year, you can pick up some of the games from Gen Con 2024 and 2025 with the 90% off. I'm just taking a wild guess here. So be sure to head over to miniaturemarket.com.
5-minute initiative begins in 3, 2, 1.
One of the hot games we got from Gen Con from the OP Games is Stalk Exchange from Christopher Chan. That's Stalk, S-T-A-L-K. In this game, you're going to be growing some flowers. You're going to be harvesting those flowers. And the more flowers you harvest of a certain type, they're going to go up in value. And at the end, everybody's going to compare their collection of values, and whoever has the highest value is going to win the game. This game is super, super simple to learn. You got a board with a hex-shaped space on the board broken up into smaller hexes, and you got a line at the bottom that you're going to be able to put some of the different flowers out. That's called the Stalk Exchange part. Beginning of the game, everybody's given this cute little shed. You get this little shed that you build, and you get some wooden pieces that represent one of 6 different types of flowers. You're going to have a whole collection of those that are hidden from everybody else. When the game starts, you'll take 2 actions, and they can be one of either 2 actions. You could take one of the flowers from behind your shed and exchange it with one of the flowers in the Stalk Exchange row, or you could take one of the flowers in the Stalk Exchange row, put it upside down with the bulb facing up out onto the board, and then that is going to complete your turn. Then you evaluate the board. Any group of like flowers, and a group can be one, that is surrounded by completely different flowers are going to be removed from the board. After that, any bulb that's beside an empty space flips over and turns into a flower. It got to bloom. And here comes the interesting part of the game. Because all those flowers that were removed are going to now be placed on this little value track on another board. They're going to be placed at the very end of the track. And for every flower that you place, you're going to move up a value token representing that flower. So if I put out 3 tulips, then the value of the tulips will go up by 3, and I'll mark that on the board. Play is going to continue until either the bag of flowers is empty or the flower and value token meet somewhere on the value track, and that will trigger the end of the game. You're going to reveal all the tokens behind your shed, evaluate the value of each flower based on where the value token is on the board. Person with the most points wins. Ta-da! So, Tony, what'd you think of the game?
It's not your typical stock game. I've played it a couple of times already, and one of the things that I've noticed about this game is it plays best with 4. Playing with 3 is boring. Playing with 2, don't even bother. And it's one of those that if people don't understand about stock manipulation, shorting, selling on all that stuff, then they may not grasp about the scoring at the end.
I don't know. I don't think there's a supply and demand on this thing at all.
But if you play with 4, there is.
There is? So I don't understand. Yes. The more flowers you harvest drives up the value. So there's a lot out there in the market. So the more that's in the market would not drive up the value of the flower, it would drop it because the supply is high.
Right.
So what am I missing? Also,
then? if you push it all the way up, then you cut it in half.
That's right. You're right. Because at the very end, whichever flower is the highest loses its value. Its value's cut in half.
Right. Because what happens is at the end is people are starting there. They're not driving. They're trying to drive up the various flowers. But as that market gets manipulated by other people, and it takes a little bit longer to get to you, you start seeing the stuff behind the shed begin to get manipulated, which then manipulates the Stalk Exchange as to what is the more prevalent flower on it, which then can shift the market around, driving up those prices. Because it's getting in there on the board and harvesting, that's also very strategic. Now, I say all this keeping in mind that, it didn't hold the attention, but I watched my wife completely locked down as she tried to manipulate the prices of the various flowers that were out there.
Okay. And of course, obviously you could do that too, because let's say you've hoarded a lot of a particular type of flower, which means you haven't driven up the value at all. So one thing you can do is on your turn, remember, you could take anything behind your shed and exchange it with something on the Stalk Exchange. So you can do that, take that and plant it on the board. So you yourself could start taking a flower that you have a lot of, put it into the market, harvest that and start driving up that value. But that means there's less that you have behind the shed to get any value back from it.
Right. And people need to understand you can never get more. You start the game, depending on the number of players, with a set amount. That never changes. You are always adjusting the amount. Like in a 4-player, it's 10 flowers.
Mm-hmm.
Also, strategically using the placement. That is key, because some people may be like, okay, wait a minute. Why did you place it there? Oh, I see. Because if a bulb does not have an open space, it does not become a flower, which then can allow flowers that you thought that you were wanting to have a big continuous string. Suddenly those are broken up. To be honest with you, yeah, it was the family when we played it. They were like, okay, this is interesting. Mm-hmm. But they also don't really enjoy the stock games as much. So I wanted to see if this very light stock game would take with them.
Okay. And so on my side, I too very much like stock market games. I honestly think this might have been just a tad too light for me. I like something more, you remember Star Tycoon that we talked about? Mm-hmm. Where you definitely saw a supply and demand. As somebody started selling off one of a lot of a resource, that dropped the value real quick. You kind of saw it working. This one, you kind of have to manipulate a little bit more. I will say, on another different note, because the production value is so good, I do think this was one that people that don't play a lot of types of these games will enjoy the big chunky wooden discs that represent the flowers. They enjoy the shed. And like I said, the rules are very, very straightforward. It's just once you start playing, how's the best way to have the highest value flowers at the end of the game? So you do have to kind of figure out that little puzzle.
Right. And that is the puzzle of placing them on the board and then reminding people it starts as a bulb, people. No, it's a bulb. It's a bulb.
If you're interested in a more light style stock market game, then look at Stalk Exchange from the OP Games. A card game that Tony and I really liked last year was a game called Cell from All Play Games. This was a co-op trick-taking game. While we were at Southern Fried Gaming Expo, Chad from 21st Century Games said, hey, guys, you like trick-taking games. Would you like to try this co-op trick-taking game called Jekyll and Hyde versus Scotland Yard? Tony, you and I said yes, and we got to sit down and play it. And much like Cell, it is a cooperative game where we're trying to achieve basically goals. There's different scenarios, different chapters in this that you're going to play through. And kind of the goal is to escape Scotland Yard. Make sure you stay ahead of Scotland Yard and you have your figure on a track that you're trying to move along a track. But how you move along, Tony, is going to be depending on the chapter that you play and the number of tricks that you take.
Right. And the tricks are pretty straightforward. It's the cards with the highest are going to win the trick, but as with all good trick-taking games, there are various trumps. And this is where this game definitely excels in how that trick is done. It's based on when the suits are played will determine the priority or the strength of the suit. So the first suit played is going to be the lowest priority or the lowest strength, and you move through the other tricks as you go. But there's also potion cards that can create certain variables that can happen, certain events that can happen.
Here's the other thing too is there is a central deck, Scotland Yard, that you're also playing from. So when you deal out the cards, there's going to be three hands dealt. You, me, Scotland Yard. And whoever's the first player will play, when it gets to Scotland Yard's turn, we just turn over the top card and we resolve it. Scotland Yard may win the deck. Scotland Yard may cause a potion to occur. But the thing is, though, so I don't want to spoil too much, but for the first chapter, the goal is you need to move your character along the track and get him to the last space by 2 rounds, but you can't go beyond that space. And how you move him is the person with the lowest tricks at the end moves that number of steps. So you and I are trying to control. It's like, all right, we need to make sure that we move an X number of steps. We've got to make sure that sometimes we have to try to take tricks from Scotland Yard we normally could. Potions come into play. You talk about those are like little effects that you can do, like you could change the priority of the suit that you mentioned. You could take a trick from Scotland Yard, for example. So it's one of those cool co-op games where you're trying to work together to try to achieve the objective. And it's going to get harder over time because as we played, it kept getting tougher, where eventually Scotland Yard is actually on the track and they're trying to catch you. And there are certain cards in the deck that when you look at your tricks you've taken at the end, Scotland Yard's going to move an X number of steps and they catch up to you, game over.
There's various chapters with a standard game, and you've got variants. So you'll play those introductory games, you'll play the standard game, and then they'll throw some variants at you. And it's even a legacy type trick taking game. You'll play up through all the chapters and you'll see how well you did. Reset, rinse, repeat, do it again, see if you can beat this. So, for me, trick taking games, I like the simplicity of this one. And it was kind of misleading. At first, when I thought we were playing it was going to be Jekyll versus Hyde, but no, we were running from Scotland Yard. We were trying to defend our honor and beat the game from getting us. So I thought that was kind of nice, a nice little twist on it. I liked how the suits came out. I liked the power of the suits and how they are set, which was really a item that you had to pay attention to. So for me, a fun, quick game while we're waiting on others to show up at board game night.
You're playing as Jekyll. I'm playing as Hyde and Scotland Yard. So we have that dual personality thing going on. Comparing to Cell, it's kind of the same thing because in Cell, you're trying to take tricks to navigate between the islands. Here, it's just that you have different goals depending on the chapter. And we found that some of those were pretty tough, especially when one of us may be taking a lot of tricks. And it's like, you're taking the most tricks, it doesn't matter. The other person needs to take a certain amount in order to move a certain number of steps. And the killer was too, is if you move too many steps, which would move you off the board, you also lose. So, for example, in the first couple chapters, by the end of round 2, you had to be on the very last space without going beyond it. And sometimes a potion card would get played from Scotland Yard that you didn't want to have to resolve, but the rules state, no, you must resolve it. Mm-hmm. So it may force you to take a trick from them you don't want. It may force you to change the priority of colors, which both of us already set to kind of work in our favor. I dug it. I just like cool ideas with trick-taking games, and this is another little twist with the co-op style of game, which I enjoy. And you're right. It's one of those things we would sit there and just play through the chapters as we go along and just have a great time with it. So this is Jekyll and Hyde versus Scotland Yard from 25th Century Games. If you're looking for a fun, fast, co-op, thinky trick-taking game, you might want to check this one out.
Well, if you like city building, then maybe you should go to Pegasus Spiel's new game, Tower Up, where on your turn, you get 2 actions. I'm sorry, you don't even get 2 actions. You get a action. You can either take a card that will give you various colors of floors, or you may build a building adjacent to another building that's on the board. But here's the catch to this game. When you place that building, it can't be the same color as the ones you're building. No, we need diversity in our buildings. We need different colors. When you do that, you place that one, but you better have the other colors that you're adjacent to because you need to stack levels on them. And then you're moving these cute little meeples across your scoring board that at the end of the game, based on how many rooftops you have showing, will determine how many points you get at the end. This game, to me, Marty, was a very easy game to teach, but very strategic to play. I really liked this game, and I've taught it to other people, and they were like, really? Is that all you're doing? But yet they would sit there and they would go, ooh, this is kind of a thinker.
We do need to kind of play theater of the mind. So there's a big board that has these empty spaces on there that you're placing these, okay? And there's different areas. There's like parks sections and stuff like that. So theater of the mind, just imagine your big board and you're stacking buildings on top of them. And the little markers you have on your board, there's a color for each of the type of building. And you move those markers when you cap one of your color pieces on top of one of those buildings. Hey, if I cap a 3 brown, I move my brown marker 3 spaces, which is, like you said, is going to help in the game scoring. But here's the trick, Tony, as you said, hey, you're going to count up the number of the tops that you have visible at the end of the game, help score some points. Somebody can come along after me and cover my top with another block. So if I have my top on top of a brown building, you can come along right after me and maybe build an adjacent side on the other side and put a brown block right over top of mine and then put your top on it. So you're fighting kind of for these buildings over time.
Right. The strategy here is to be able to landlock a building so no one can do that to you, because that helps you at the end of the game. That's one of the big strategies that you're like, if I place this building here, are you going to be able to come along, or looking around the board, looking at the people, what floors they have? Because nothing prevents you from capping your own building. All you're going to do is move up an additional spot if you cap it again. However, there are various game scoring or objectives that you need to achieve.
Objective cards.
Yeah, like I've put a rooftop on every building that sits in a park. Or, oh wait, I've connected buildings across 2 areas. All that comes in, and it's only if you have presence. So it's not like your rooftops always have to be on top. As long as you have presence in a building, you were a landlord once. You were able to do that.
I think the tricky thing I found that was making sure that you have enough building tops. Because like you said, when you build a building, you better make sure to have the right color tops to cover the other buildings. That's where drafting the cards come in. You're going to pick one of the 3 cards that are available to you that might give you various color tops of buildings, maybe 2 of white, 1 of brown, 1 of each, or it could actually be move your marker, your little scoring marker on your board too. So a lot of times you're just going to be collecting pieces. Then you're going to start building buildings to make sure that you have all the correct pieces to top the buildings that you're building adjacent to.
I've taught it to y'all. I've taught it to our friends. They were kind of skeptical. I think you might have been a little skeptical at the beginning of it. Like, this is not going to be difficult. But it was pretty strategic. I mean, seriously, I know I've said it once, but it is.
You know, it's one of those things where the rules are so simple. How can I get enjoyment out of this? But you can't, because like you said, we were spending a lot of time trying to landlock other people out to make sure that, hey, I've capped a building. Nobody can now touch this building because of how you done that. This game also reminds me of Sunrise Lane, which we covered several months ago. Another game where you're placing buildings on the board and you get certain heights of buildings and there's different objectives and all that thing too. But that works totally different. Is you have your own player pieces you're putting on the board. Here it's not that at all. You're just trying to collect the correct color pieces that you need to build the buildings. So we talked about having your tops of your building showing. Why that's important, because on your player board, you're going to count the number of tops you have at the end of the game, and you have a token that you're going to move on the board to indicate that amount. This token is also going to show where you're going to score for those 4 markers you've been moving the whole game. Anything at or to the left of your token, you're going to get points for. But if you have one of your markers to the right of the token, you're just going to miss scoring those points. So you're always trying to keep track of that too, because that's a big point scoring opportunity at the end of the game. I liked it. It's one of those things that, like you said, you taught the people that don't play a lot of really heavy games, but it was really, hey, you either take a card, you build a building, you're done, and here's how you score your points. Mm-hmm. Something so simple, but it is very thinky.
On top of that, you'll be surprised by, first off, we don't really talk about inserts, but they have a little tray for all the pieces. Everything works very nice and for the cards to display. And there's also, for this game, there's a 2-player side of the board. They've already shortened up the mat of the city so that you have that going for it. I found that, we've played it with 3. I've played it with 4. I enjoyed both counts. I can't wait to play it 2 against Donna to see what she has to say at that level. So that is Tower Up from Pegasus Spiel.
All right, so when we heard that Bezier Games was bringing over a very popular game over from Europe that's based on hearts, but with the twist, we thought, okay, we got to try this out. So we went to Gen Con, we got a copy of it, and we've played it. Rebel Princess is like hearts. You got 4 suits, but the theme of it is, Tony, the princesses have gone together to have a fun weekend. They want to get away. And what are the princes trying to do? They're trying to crash their party. So that's kind of the light theme of it. But the thing is, you don't want any of the princes. Wow, it's hard to say princes and princesses. Prince cards in your tricks, because they're going to give you points at the end of the game. And Tony, it pretty much, before we talk about the twist to it, plays exactly like hearts at that point.
And it does. And that's one of the things. I mean, so if you know how to play hearts, you will be able to go into this game understanding the basic principles of it. Now, where it changes is there are player powers where each player has a power that may give them the ability to, force someone to exchange cards, or they'll be able to play off suit, even when they have the suit, things like that. So once per round, you're able to activate your princess's power, and you'll be able to use that to your advantage to try to keep from having a prince come ruin your party. And then also, just like in hearts, instead of the Queen of Spades, there's the frog and an opposite suit. he counts as a prince because if you kiss him, he's going to turn into a prince, and he counts as 5 princes. So you have to be very careful. You don't want him. But just like in Hearts, if you know how to play Hearts, a player who gets all the princes to come to the party and the frog, you've shot the moon, and everybody else takes the points, not you.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, you know how to play the game.
So you add the player powers, but there's one other twist that I really like too. You're going to play over 5 rounds. You have an event deck. So you draw 5 of the cards of the event deck, put them face down the table, and each round you're going to flip over, and that card is going to affect something. That was the twist, Tony, that absolutely changed this game and just made it magical for me. Some of these were totally mind-blowing. Like one of them was, after you take a trick, you can replace one of the cards from the trick with a card from your hand. So say, for example, I got stuck with that frog card in a trick. I could take that, put it into my hand, and replace it with something else, and then you guys know, crap. Well, we know the frog card's still out there somewhere. It's these little twists each round that makes every round unique.
It breathes life into a game that you know so well. It makes it a sort of a gamer's game. However, if you're not into all the player powers and all this special stuff, like I know for my family, Donna hates Hearts. She can't stand Hearts, and I don't understand why. So I was like, maybe this game would be something that she would enjoy. She's like, nope. Not only can I not take tricks, I don't understand what the various princess powers are. You're making it too complicated. I'm like, okay, fine. I enjoyed it too. One of my favorite princess power is Cinderella, where she flips the suits from, instead of 12 to 1, 1 to 12 is now powerful. I love things like that. So all these work really cool.
Yeah. So where you think you're going to lose a trick by playing a 1, somebody can use that princess power and flip it. It's like, well, poo, I just took that trick.
Yeah.
So it's just those little twists like that if you're a gamer, just really makes it excel. And honestly, this is one of the better trick-taking games I've played in a while because I love Hearts so much. And Bezier Games has come out with a lot of games we've played this year. Xylotar, Sandbag, Sears Catalog, and now this one. Of the 4, just because I love Hearts so much, this is my favorite. I think it's super easy to teach. And the player powers and the event cards just put it right over the top for me.
I agree. It's a fun game. Another one to keep in the bag to pull out at a convention. I mean, I've got some other games from different publishers. Should just create a little card bag inside of my game bag. And
everybody at the table really enjoyed it and had a good time too. And I think you will also. This is Rebel Princess. Is it Rebel Princess? Rebel Princess,
yeah.
Is Rebel Princess, is that plural?
No.
Yeah,
I don't
Princesses.
know. Yes.
I'm taking too much time in there.
Yeah.
Rebel Princess from Bezier Games. For several episodes, we've been promoting the Game Toppers Kickstarter 4.5, which ran, and now it's over, and you went, dang it, Marty. I wanted to. I just didn't get over there and get those cool mats. I didn't get those terrain packs that you were telling me about. Well, guess what? Oh, it's not too late. You can go over to Kickstarter and go over to the Game Toppers 4.5 campaign page and sign up for the late pledge manager. So if you missed it and you're interested in some of these brand new fantastic mats that he has, or the rail art that he's going to be able to put on your existing Game Topper, if you don't even have a Game Topper and you want to get one, then sign up for the late pledge manager over at the website. I know that I'm super excited about the terrain mats that are coming out. There was several Kickstarter goals that were met, giving some additional of those terrain mats to people if you order those. I have hanging on my door the regular mat size holder, which is great for holding these small game mats. So my Star Wars Unlimited mats are inside their little holder, hanging on my door, and just go grab one when I want to play. Just top-notch quality products. And if you missed it, again, just sign up for the late pledge manager, and you can find out those links and everything about their products over at GameToppersLLC.com.
5-minute initiative begins in 3, 2, 1.
Well, we got another card game coming at you, but before we get to it, I want to mention one that this kind of reminds me of. Dutch Blitz is a game where you are quickly trying to eliminate your blitz pile into a central stack. Here, we have Flash 10, where you're trying to get in ascending order numbered cards so that you can be the first one to say stop and score points. That's the game. Quickly grabbing your cards from the deck, everybody's around there, and you're trying to line these things up and make it happen and say, hey, I've got ascending order. Now these cards go from, I think it was 0 to 99.
0 to 99.
Yeah. And you got to be thinking fast. You got to be moving quick. You got to be able to put things in order. And let me tell you, for a guy like me, getting a little up in the age, it wasn't tedious. It was just challenging. I was throwing cards all over the table.
Yeah, this is an older game from DeVere Games and Wolfgang Kramer. And it's one of those that it's also so simple, but once you start playing, it's really chaotic. Everybody gets 10 cards. You can't look at your cards. You just put them face down on the table and then line them up left to right. And when you say go, you quickly flip over the cards. You can't readjust the order at all. From the central deck, draw a card and just put it on top of one of your 10 cards with the goal of hopefully having an ascending order by the end. Now, Tony, there are cards in there that can help. There's the Thunderstrike cards, which you can put on top of a card. What that does is if there's a card you just can't find to get covered, it will keep your ascending order going by skipping over it, but it's worth -1 point at the end. So let's say if you say stop, I'm going to get 10 points because I did them all, -1 for every Thunderstruck card, but some cards also have a lightning bolt on them too, which will give you a +1. If you happen to go through the entire deck and nobody's done it, you're just going to count up the number of cards that you got from in ascending order from lowest to highest.
Right. Now, I will say we were sitting there shuffling cards and placing them in a pile in the middle. Don't do that. Just scatter them out all around the table so everybody can start grabbing and flipping and things like that. We'll also save in setup time because to me, the shuffling was probably one of the most time-consuming things of this whole game.
A game would literally take 30 to 45 seconds. Yes. I mean, it moved quick, but then you spent a minute getting all the cards together or 90 seconds and then shuffling, dealing out, go.
Right.
And it's basically you play to a certain number of points.
Right. And you can set whatever you want. They're going to recommend some things. Now, this is based on Amigo's Flash 10. One of the big changes from this and DeVere is the colors of the numbers. Comparing the various images that are over at BGG, I really do like the DeVere version. I like the colors pop, the numbers pop. So for me, if you're interested in one of these games, like Dutch Blitz, where you're quickly grabbing things. Here, you're building instead of getting rid of. Hey, give Flash 10 a try. The family with young kids, they'll love this game.
Yeah, it plays 8 and up, 2 to 5 players. So have a lot of people standing around the table. You're going to want to be standing because you're going to be flying like crazy. So if you like these really chaotic, fast-moving games, try Flash 10 from DeVere. Tony had an idea for a 5-minute initiative, and we're going to try it out. Each of us are going to spend 2.5 minutes talking about a game, and then we're going to splice these together, meaning neither of us will have heard what the other person has said until we put it together. Let's see how this goes.
5-minute initiative begins in 3, 2, 1.
Biomos is a game from North Star Games, plays 1 to 4 players in 20 minutes, designed by Madeline Zennel. In this game, each player is going to be given a board that has a circular track around a colored planet. On your turn, you're going to select one of the 5 terrain tokens that are on the table and place it somewhere in your circular space around the planet. Each of these tokens represent 5 different terrains: oceans, deserts, forests, mountains, and glaciers. When you place a terrain tile in your track, you cannot pick it up and move it to a location to the rest of the game. But what you can do is slide the terrain tiles around the track to make gaps in between tiles to place new tiles. Why would you want to do that? Because when you do, you might be able to perform an optional action on your turn. Say, for example, if I have a desert adjacent to an ocean, I can replace that with the forest, because forests are worth 1 point at the end of every game. Or if you have an ocean adjacent to a mountain, you can replace it with a glacier. And while that's cool, what you're ultimately trying to do is to complete a sequence of terrain tiles that are on biome cards in the middle of the table. And when you match a sequence, you'll pick up that card, take it, and it's going to score you points at the end of the game. You have basic biome cards, which aren't worth a lot of points, and then giant biomes, which are worth a lot. And the giant biomes aren't replaced placed. So what you see is what you get. So there's a big race to get those for big points. And also at the end of your turn, you're going to reach into a bag and pull out tokens to replace those ones you're drafted from. Once every person has filled every spot around their planet with the terrain token, the game will end. You count up the points, person with most points wins. Obviously, you guys here, this is a very simple, easy game to learn. Draft some tiles, put them into place, possibly use special abilities, all for the goal of trying to match the patterns on these cards to score points. This is a very light game. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Century Spice Road, where you have these gold cards you're trying to get and score and everything like that. It is a really fun, easy to learn family game. Now, for us, it may have been just a little too light for our game group, but again, it's one of those you could teach real quick. Get in front of the table for gamers, non-gamers, small box, inexpensive, plays fast, and great for kids. All right, let's see what Tony has to say about the game.
So for me, Biomos was not a game that I would want to play over and over. I felt like at times that I was not able to accomplish the structure that I wanted to in order to score the victory points that I needed on the cards. It was one where I was setting up my board and suddenly someone took it. So now I was kind of stuck. Even though I can move the various tokens around in the draft or whatever I would get in the draft, I felt like, oh, well, crap, now I'm stuck this way. And the next cards came out, they weren't that great. And I then have to spend the next few turns in the draft trying to achieve another goal. So for me, I think this game, the randomness even got to me. I mean, it was all right. People were enjoying it. It plays fast. But overall, this is not one of those games that I think will, stick for me. And so I leave it to you to decide. And based on what Marty said, which I didn't hear, maybe he can convince you to put it on yourself. But for Tony, no, I'm okay with this not being on my shelf.
If you go to All Play's booth at any time in a convention, you're just going to see all these little small box card games. And Tony, you and I have played a lot of them over the past year. The latest one that we got from Gen Con is called Lure. This is from designer Satoru Nakamura. And this is a game that, number one, it has dice in it. I went, okay, it's got dice, so I'm interested. And the goal of the game is to capture fish. You got a deck of fish cards. You're going to have a certain number of cards come out on the table based on the number of players. And the fish are going to indicate what it takes to catch them. It could be like dice that are rolled need to equal this sum or greater, or dice need to have a particular number like 1 or 1, 2, and 3. And each of you have a hand of dice, and you're going to bid how many dice you want to roll in your turn. You're going to simultaneously reveal your hand. Whoever has the fewest dice gets the first chance to roll their dice and see if they capture any fish. If they do, great, they take it, and then the next person goes. If they don't, they take a little lure token, which is good for you to use to be able to modify a die or like give you an extra number if you need it, that you can use on a future turn. And then when everybody's done, you put out some more fish, and it's wash, rinse, repeat. Something that simple, but to me, Tony, I think the interesting thing is the whole bidding part, because you want to bid as low as you can, but a lot of these cards will be like, oh, hey, well, you need to get 17 or higher to get this. And it's like, well, how many dice can I commit to possibly get that?
I never liked going fishing. I didn't do it. Didn't like sitting in a boat. I didn't like trying to put a worm on a hook. I didn't like that. Then a hook got caught in my sweatpants, and I had to cut it. My dad had to cut the hook out of my sweatpants. And when I was rolling these dice, it brought back some terrible childhood memories. It felt like there was a hook in my sweatpants, Marty. I could not roll and catch a fish to save my life. I'm just going to go all in every time with the 6-sided dice. That's one thing I want people to be aware of. Yeah, fun game, strategy on using which dice, when to use the larger dice, the 20-sided dice.
There's 5 D6s that you get, 1 D12, 1 D20. But the thing is about if you use the D12 and D20, it goes away for one turn to where you can't use it, but then you'll get it back the next turn. But you always get all your D6s back.
Right. And so I was like, okay, I'm not having any luck. I'm pulling up. I'm seeing the bob. They're just stealing the worm off my hook. And I would be rolling. I was rolling Yahtzee. And I was sitting there going, oh, good gosh.
He would commit a lot of dice to something. It's like, okay, I need 14. He'd roll like 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3.
Yeah, it was
really bad.
So
now, there are some cards that you just need lower values to need, like 4 or 3. But some of those you need to roll a 4 or higher, but one of those need to be a 2. Mm-hmm. And then you think, well, how many dice can I commit and hope to get a 2 sort of deal?
Yeah. And if you're having bad luck like I was, every time you don't catch a fish, you get a lure, a new fangle dangle lure to be able to catch additional. It may be like a substitute. Use this lure to try to catch a fish. Like this will now be a 2, or you'll have a 4, or we'll add 1, decrease 1. So you have some dice manipulation. It's a dice game. It's a fun dice game. It's a different take on the hundreds of dice games out there. You're trying to catch fish. The easier fish are less points. Do you want to push it? Do you want to risk it? Who knows? You want to talk in the boat? Whatever you want to do. But, it was a fun little dice chucker.
And it's one of those things, only plays in 15 minutes, 2 to 5 players. Kids can learn to play this. They'll have fun rolling dice. Everybody loves to roll the dice. Again, I guess the whole tension part of the game is, how many dice am I going to commit? I want to go as early in the turn as I can, because if somebody goes before you and takes the fish that you were wanting to get, well, then you just may be walking away with an empty line and maybe an extra lure.
So I did not feel the tension because I was not providing any tension. There was no tension in my line at all. All right. So I understand your point. I really do. And so I think that's just something you just got to keep in mind. So that is lure from all play.
Years ago, there was an extremely popular game called Magic Maze, a co-op game where you're trying to help pawns move through a maze. But the thing is, each of you were responsible for moving the pawn a certain direction, left, right, forward, back, etc. Created lots of fun and lots of craziness, because this game also included a timer where you only had a certain amount of time to get out of a maze. And Tony, remember, it had this really annoying pawn that you would use to tap on the table, because there is zero communication during this game. Be like tap, 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 like in front of somebody, like you're expecting them to, okay, I need you to use your ability to move this pawn sort of deal. So a new game has come out from Sit Down Games, from designer Casser Lap, called Magic Maze Tower, which does a lot of the same things, except it removes the timer and it removes the little tapping token that maybe have caused a lot of stress in the previous game.
It's also brought the player count down from 8 to 4, something that people should be aware of. I'll just leave it that this is a puzzle game for people. I don't know. I mean, without the little tapping thing, which I was so happy not to see. So happy. This is one of those programming games to help people solve puzzles. I see this with a kid-friendly family. Like, how would you move to solve these problems? Here are these special moves that the various pawns make, like jumping over one another, fitting through small doors. You're a dwarf. You got your small stature. Hey, this one can teleport next to somebody. Hey, all these things. How are you going to use this to help solve? I can see sitting down with a family saying, okay, let's try to solve these puzzles, because in this game, there is a boatload. There must have been close to 100 puzzle maps. A single one, and then you can put them together, and then you can build on those. I mean, there's endless possibilities in this game.
Yeah, so there are 44 quest cards of 2 different colors and 32 of another, for a total of 76. So yes, there are a lot of cards in there, and you start out very simple. They have tutorial cards, and then you work through a single square card. But eventually what you do is you take 4 of these cards and put them together and make a larger map or a larger maze that you're trying to work through. The thing is, though, with the trick of this game is you're not supposed to talk. That's the thing. But you've got to be cognizant of everything that works in the maze, because the tutorial teaches you, hey, there's locked doors, which means a person needs to go stand on this particular colored space here so that that will unlock the door so that somebody can walk through it. It reminds me of a Zelda puzzle, Tony. Hey, I've got to move this stone statue on top of this button so Link can walk through the door. It's that sort of thing. You have ladders that can take you up and down. And then, like you said, you've got all the different player abilities. So once you have all those basic things down, then it really comes down to these puzzles, these towers, dungeons that get progressively harder over time, that you say, like you said, it is trying to solve. And the nice thing is, it is not timed anymore, so you can just take your own sweet time trying to figure it out. Oh, they've also got this thing in here where of the 2x2 grid maps that you have, Some of the tiles can be rotated. There may be a space on the tile that says actually rotate this tile to realign corridors to help you solve it. So you can see some of these can get pretty complex.
So I stand by my earlier comments. This is a great family game. I can just see sitting there having a blast with the kids, teaching them to solve puzzles. But on Gamers Night, because you started tapping. I don't care there was no tapper there. You're sitting there going, do your thing. And I got so frustrated with you, I just started moving out all the pieces. I was like, okay, fine. I'll go solve this puzzle. Because I think that's one of the things you got to watch for. When you're playing this game, you're going to want to solve the puzzle yourself, and you just need to sit back and enjoy it and let others work through the process. But, for me, it was like, okay, I'll move here. Okay, fine. Just move my piece for me if you see it.
At the beginning of a game, like with 4 players, everybody gets a token that shows which way they can move, left, right, forward, or back. And they're responsible for moving any token that direction. So you may be waiting on somebody to realize, that token needs to be moved up or over, etc. So Tony, I talked about the 2x2. Get this. You can do an 8 quest card. You take 8 cards and you do a line of 3, then 2 on the outside, leaving a gap in the middle, and 3 on the bottom. Then those maps have a way where tiles can slide. Mm-hmm. So it's like a sliding puzzle from sliding one tile around. So you can see how complicated these can get. So it's a very deep, thinky, and what should be a silent game, because there should be no talking, no tapping. So if you like the original, but now you want something that's maybe a little less tension or a little less stressful with a lot of replayability, check out Magic Maze Tower.
All right, when I was over in England, you constantly heard on the subway, mind the gap, don't fall in the gap. Well, Gap is a card game from Funbot and Arcane Wonders. It's a card game. You're not having to take tricks, so pay attention here. No tricks. No tricks are going out there. But you got a hand of cards, and on your turn, you're going to play one of those cards. If that card matches a number, you get the card that's in the row. Match. If you play a number and it matches the number in the row.
Well, explain what. There's a row of cards in the middle of the table.
Let's get to that. Can I do it my way?
Can I do it my way? What number? Okay, shh. Go ahead.
Fine. There's a row of numbers.
A row of cards with numbers on them.
There's a row of numbers. And there's cards in them. I already mentioned there's cards. My God, man. Pay attention. There's a row of numbers, and there's cards with those numbers. There's cards with numbers. There. Fine.
Wow.
That's what it is. And you're going to play a card from your hand, and it's got a number on it. And if that number matches a card with a number on it, you get both those cards back. Yay. All right, if you play a card and they don't match, but it is consecutive to a card that's higher or lower than it, you pick which one you want, and it comes back. The whole,
even if there's multiples?
Yeah. Even if there's multiples. I mean, hey, you got to get it out there. So you're trying to think, okay, but what's the catch here?
Why am I doing this, Tony? Why am I taking these cards?
Because you got 4 suits. And based on how many of one suit you take versus the other suit, you're going to get certain points. Like if I collect 5 of one suit and then I have only 1 card of another suit, then I'm going to get 4 points.
So you're taking the suit that you collected the most cards in, 1 point per card, and subtract from that the suit that you had the least amount of cards in.
But you know what else can happen?
What had happened?
Well, if you get 2 suits that have the same amount of numbers in them, you can double that.
So if it's the 2 suits that are the highest, you double it. But what happens if there's 2 suits tied for the lowest?
Well, double that, but now you're negative points. Something that you never in a million years happen. What if you get all 4 suits and they all have the same, and you have the same amount in it? Guess what? You won the game.
4 times that number. Yeah. Which actually happened in our game. It's like, come on, Bert. You actually collected the exact number of suit of each one. And so here's the thing is, you also could play a card that doesn't match anything in the row and is not one off from one of the existing cards. That card just goes to the middle of the row.
But why would you do that, Marty? What would make you do that?
Because maybe I don't want any of the cards in the middle of the row and I'm trying to find a card I can get rid of.
That's right, because that'll mess up your scoring at the end.
If you play a card that matches multiple cards in the middle of the row, you get all those cards. And that's going to be a lot of different suits that you probably don't want.
Do the suits really matter? Not until the end scoring.
Do the numbers really matter? Only during the game and not at the end.
That's right. So this, I've said it a lot in this show. This is a very light game. Strategy-wise, I think it could easily be missed by players. For me, the game didn't really. I like tense strategy card games. So this game really did not resonate with me. I wasn't really, it didn't grasp me. I wasn't sitting there thinking, how do I want to play these cards? How do I want to set them up? It was very random. And so for me in my card games, I'm not one who enjoys the randomness of what the gap brought.
And this is a game that, number one, it plays up to 6 players, which is nice. It's only 10 minutes, which is super short. And it's for ages 8 and up, which means, again, it's one of these family games that you have on the holidays, you have when you take on vacation. This is one of those you throw in the bag and you pull out. It's one of those late night games that's not hard to figure out because it's not very thinky. And lots of times you just want a game like that. We've covered a lot of games in this show that card games that are way more thinky than this. So it's just the level of heaviness that you want within a card game. But it is one of those you can probably teach in 30 seconds to a minute and you're up and running and it's really that fast. So that is Gap from Arcane Wonders.
ShopPortalGames.com for all those Portal games. Not just one game of Portals, but all of them, such as AI Space Puzzle, one of the hot hits from Gen Con. They were selling through that pile of games in no time. Marty and I would come back every day and that pile will have dropped a good 1.5 feet. So if you want to get your copy of it, be sure to head over to Shop Portal Games to get that pre-order in. And I am sure Ignacy will take care of you. Then again, we're at the booth with Ben. Ben is an avid player of Robinson Crusoe. And they had the book that combined all the various scenarios. Hey, it's bad enough just to play the base game in Robinson and get destroyed. Go through every scenario. Maybe that's what you should do in 2024 through 2025 is play all the scenarios and keep score and just see how well you do. One of our favorite games that they sold out over there was the Imperial Miners. So still a very hot game going on. And be sure if there's other things that you want, head over. Like for instance, there's various board maps and also one of Marty and I's favorite games, Hiroshima Hex. Head over to shopportalgames.com.
Tony, I suck at Star Wars Unlimited. Why? I love this game, but I am just not good at it. Today, I decided, you know what? There is a new game store. I'll be talking about them in just a second that opened up near me. It's only 15 minutes from me.
Oh, cool.
Okay. Yeah. So very, very nice. On Sunday afternoons at 2:00, they always play Star Wars Unlimited. So I thought, I would go check it out. I wasn't sure what type of event it was going to be. It was either going to be constructed or draft. So we get there and only 4 of us showed up. And it happened to be 3 other people that I've played with before at your local game store. So come to find out, there's a group that plays at your local game store on Saturday, and they come and play at the store that's called To the Table on Sunday. I said, all right. So we sit there and did a draft. I'm playing against a couple guys who play this game a lot. They want to go to tournaments and stuff like that. And so they draft their little deck and just absolutely annihilate me. We played 3 games, best of 3 wins. And so I played against a Ray deck with the stupid Moisture Farmer, which just ticks me off. He got it pumped up. I mean, at the end of the game, I had 30 damage on my base. He had 0. Oh, it's like, I'm going to restore. Mm-hmm. Now, in my second game, I actually did win. So I didn't with my little deck. I got it to work, and I played Cad Bane. No, not Cad Bane. I'm sorry. I played Boba Fett. Boba Fett is the one that anything you play with a keyword, you can tap him and give him +1 to somebody.
This is the one where I've never touched that because this keyword thing, that's anything in bold, right?
Anything in bold red.
Bold red.
Yeah. Shielded, ambush, overwhelm, smuggling, anything like that.
Anything in red is the keyword. Okay.
Yep. I still had a fantastic time. Next week, they're going to recreate the pre-release event. The pre-release box is the one that you get 6 packs in. He said he got a bunch of those. He's going to charge $30. Some people were charging like $40 for this thing. But you get 6 packs of cards, which is basically the $5. Basically, you get 6 packs of cards for $30 and then play a game. So I may try that next week. But it's one of those things when you play against somebody that really knows what they're doing, and then you realize how little that you know that you're doing. Sort of deal. All that for saying, I want to play more. I'm going to go to more of these events. I know you and I have a lunch schedule this week, so hopefully we get to play. And I definitely need to play more constructed. I need to sit there and play with the decks and tune them as opposed to just doing the draft stuff.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I mean, the more you do something, the better you get at it. And the same thing goes with this. The more you understand how the combos work, the actions work, and you and I do not have like the various rares that people do or the legendaries they throw in there. We're not doing that, or I'm not going to chase that. And I'm just like, okay, I will, I enjoyed the constructed just to see how well I do. Just like any drafting, I mean, a draft event, you may get stuck with like, what was it I got stuck with? I had, all villain leaders. And I'm like, this is going to be a hard draft for me to have to deal with. And if someone else has a villain leader to my left or a villain leader to my right, they've also picked those. You know what I'm saying? Then you get stuck in that. And but I'm glad you're able to get out there and get a chance to play this game. I still enjoy playing. I tore all my decks apart, so I need to reconstruct those before we get together and see what I can bring to the table. See if maybe you've gotten better, and the litmus test is when you destroy my decks. And you beat me constantly, so I don't think you stink at it.
Maybe before we get together, I'll because the one I've got still from Gen Con, I'll tear it down and try to build another one tomorrow night before we play. But I also want to give a shout out to the store. So this is a brand new store. It's called To The Table, and you go to tothetable.game in order to check them out. And the reason why I say it, even though it's local to here, he has an online store. He's selling a bunch of stuff. But Tony, what's cool is all of his games he has in the store, he sells below MSRP. He's trying to compete with some of the online stores because he's like, I know you guys can just go and order online and get really good deals. So he said, I want to stay somewhat competitive. I want to make sure that I can get games in here for you. And so that was really cool. He is a super nice guy. I mean, everybody that walks in, he's the type of guy that you want as a store owner. Hi, how can I help you? What are you into? And talk to him and stuff. The store is super clean. It kind of looks like a coffee shop, meaning it's not plastered with a bunch of game posters and stuff. It's decorated super nice with nice lighting and nice paneling. The bathroom is immaculate. It smells great. He keeps it clean. And I know it's just like, Marty, why are you bringing that up? Because we've all been in situations where the bathroom can make you say, nah, if they can't keep this clean, then I'm out of here sort of deal. So that's kind of an important thing. And even I remember the owner at Carolina Tabletop Games said that's an important thing. You got to keep your bathroom clean or customers aren't going to be happy. So that's a little thing, but he did that. The only thing is it is kind of small. So I'm hoping it's one of those things that it does really well. He runs a lot of Magic events. He runs D&D events. He has some private rooms that you can rent for $25 and go play D&D, which is cool. But I hope it does well enough to maybe he could expand because he probably could use the more floor space because they said one event is like one of the first Star Wars events. Every table is pretty much taken with just those people playing that. So anyway, super nice guy. tothetable.game. If you're in Charlotte, go check them out. He's situated right between two other game stores, but they're like 20 minutes on either side. So it's kind of in his own little area near me.
Well, I went out and did something even more dumb. I went and spent money on an expansion to a game called Guild Wars 2 that I haven't even finished the other expansions, but I'm set up. I'm ready for the big release. By the time this is heard, the release has happened for, let's see if I can get this right, Janthier Wilds.
I think so, yes.
And I've got one of my characters parked in the Skywatch Tower. I'll watch some videos on that to make sure you get one parked there and sitting there, and then begin playing it sometime this week and just see how poor some of my characters are. One of the things about Guild Wars 2 is I know you can keep playing it, solo. I only play the solo because of the times I play, but I don't have all the ascended gear, all the mega gear, but I got the exotic gear. So I feel like I am somewhat competitive, but in these releases, I find that they just take longer if you're playing solo. Like I'm trying to get through Skywatch and it is taking me forever to make it through the story. It's just very frustrating because those guys are hard to defeat.
I know. I told you I'd play with you, but you never hit me up.
Well, that's because you're not going to be awake when I play.
Well, I don't know. Try me.
Okay, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night.
Why are you staying up that late? Don't you have to go to work?
Yeah, but I don't have to be there like you do. I mean, my servers stay up and running at the power company.
Touche. So I got to ask you this. I didn't realize this. Your character has to be where the latest expansion is?
No, you need one of your characters there because there's going to be something in game that you need to start collecting. I didn't pay a lot of attention. They just said have one sitting there.
Okay, I don't want to use the character that I have in that expansion, which is a big mistake of mine. 2020 hindsight, I should have used the same character in every expansion, because now it's like, oh, well, I wish I had the character that I used in End of Dragons in the Secrets of the Obscure so that I could use the zip lines, because the other character in End of Dragons has the batteries or whatever in order to use the zip lines. What else? Yeah, anyway, I want to use the guys in End of Dragons, so that's the one I want to use in this new expansion. So how about this? Tuesday night, you and I will get on and at least step into this expansion together, maybe.
Right. Now, the thing is, I've got to figure out which character that I'm going to take there, because we both do not have, well, I still do not have a flying mount. And
I don't think you need it, hopefully.
You don't. But they did say that it will definitely help, as well as the skimmer who can go underwater, which is completing Path of Fire.
You can get a skimmer without completing Path of Fire.
No, but to go underwater with the skimmer?
Oh, crap.
But they said it will make life easier. And I'm like, well, the easy button is always nice, but we won't have to have that. They just say you should consider completing Secrets of the Obscure. And I'm like, oh, great. So there you go. But I'm going to give it a shot Tuesday night after I stream a Twitch for like 8 hours to get all the free stuff that's coming.
Yeah, that's just cosmetic stuff, isn't it?
No, some of it's good, really good stuff. I forget what it is.
All right, well, send me a link and I'll do that too.
Okay, I will do that. So that's coming up from the standpoint. And I played my son-in-law, and he said, wait, what? You got NCAA? I said, yeah, for the PlayStation. And he's like, okay, let's play. I said, well, okay, take it easy on me. And he says, I'm not very good at this game. And I said, okay, well, I haven't played in forever. And so we're playing NCAA. So I played my alma mater, Go Pack, and he was going to take it easy on me. So he played Army. He shouldn't have played Army because that was a beatdown, but it was nothing compared to the score that I posted against him with Nebraska against Missouri, 102-0.
You over him?
It was only 6-minute quarters too. He goes, I don't understand how to throw in this game.
There's a learning curve. So I played Adam and I let him play State. And I said, well, I'll play Mississippi State. So that way, if you lose, it won't care. And I blew him out of the water too. Now, at the end of the game, we started figuring it out. It was like we started figuring out how to use the controls to be able to look at the field. The thing is about this game is, right, you're sitting there and trying to look at all your options downfield. Meanwhile, you're sitting in the pocket, hopefully nobody tackles you. And I said, Adam, it gives you a whole appreciation of the person who's actually playing this game, sitting in the pocket with somebody trying to take off your head, and you're just trying to find the open guy downfield.
That's why you got to go through your checks pretty quick. Even in this game, you got to do those checks, and you have to step up. If you don't step up in this game, you'll have poor passing percentage.
Oh, you mean step up in the pocket?
Step up. You need to step up in the pocket so that will help you and understand the difference between lob. But I was watching one video on it because I needed to understand how this all works. It's not like what you and I used to play on the Nintendo system. But one of the interesting parts was the guy was saying, this is the new passing, or you could go back to what everybody's used to, where you actually throw the ball and run the receiver to it and jump and catch it. I'm like, there is no way I could do this. I could not pass to a spot on the field and hope I run the little guy there. And the other thing is, I watched him, he kept hitting the button to try to activate the defender. And I said, stop doing that.
Activate the defender, then run away from the guy to have with the ball.
Yes. I said, let the machine do the machine thing. Okay. We had fun with it.
It's fun.
In the 102. In the one big game, I go, I'm ready to quit whenever you are. This is just, I think the game's cheating, to be honest with you. Because he kept roughing my kicker too. And he's like, I'm not doing anything. I'm like, I know, it's useless. With that, I'm just going to keep rolling dice.
And taking names. Hey, y'all, thanks for listening. Did you hear all those 5-minute initiatives that we did? Which one of those short games would you be interested in? Once you come out to our Discord channel and let us know, you can get the links over our website, rolldicetakenames.com. Remember to follow us on socials at Dice and Name, where I'm going to be posting the top games from 2001. Let us know which ones that you like. And if you want to support the show, you can do so over at buymeamoonpie.com.
Fine. I'll do better on naming the shows moving forward.
I got no time. See? Perfect.